What's up, everybody? You're tuning in to BottomLineSports.net, serving up deeper insight on everything sports. So you thought LeBron James and the decision was bad. Introducing Dwight Howard's ongoing saga, which I've actually given a couple names. How about the delusion? Or maybe the physician, because I think I might need to see one after this crap is over. I feel like I've been waiting for Howard to be traded about as long as I've been waiting for Dr. Dre to release his new album. Let me give everyone a quick timeline of what's been going on with Howard. March 2011, the Nets have interest in him, and then Howard is asked if he's interested in the Nets. He says, "Orlando is the most attractive place for me right now." Later in December 2011, after the NBA lockout, Howard came to training camp with a public trade request. It wasn't said publicly, but Howard's preferred destination was the Nets. He said, "I've been back and forth, mainly because the people here in Orlando really care for the city. Nobody's going to understand that, and if you hate me because of a jersey, then you never really love me. That's how I feel." March 2012. After sticking to his trade request all season, Howard changed his mind right before the trade deadline and chose to opt into the final year of his contract with the Magic just as the Nets were about to deal for him. Howard said, "I'm not like the guy that those people are trying to portray me to be. I'm loyal. That's just me. That's just my nature. I told my teammates that I'm all in." April 2012, in one of the most awkward press conferences in the history of sports, then Magic coach Stan Van Gundy tells reporters that Howard wants him fired. Moments later, Howard joins the press conference not knowing what's going on. He gets asked about what Van Gundy said. Howard denies it and asks, "Who's your source?" "Well, it's the guy sitting right next to you." The next month, May 2012, the Magic fired Van Gundy and general manager Otis Smith. And finally, we're here in July 2012. Since Howard has been as unpredictable as a March Madness bracket, the Nets decided to deal for Joe Johnson in a trade that used up a lot of their assets and cap space. As a result, a deal for Howard seemed unrealistic. But after the Magic had all but closed talks with the Nets for months, Orlando GM Rob Hennigan reopened them with Brooklyn. Then, in a span of a week, the Magic are said to be in talks with the Nets, Hawks, Lakers, Rockets, and Clippers. Talks with the Nets ended again. Houston seemed to be the likely destination. Now it's LA. On Thursday, it was reported that Howard would sign an extension with the Lakers if he was traded there. Now today, he's denying those reports. After all that, we still only know one thing about Howard's future. He's not going to be with the Magic for much longer. All of this ridiculousness is a product of two things. Number one, the Orlando Magic being one of the most poorly run franchises in all of sports. Just look at some of the moves they've made in the past. Granted, Shaq was a free agent and just didn't want to play there, but what about giving an unbelievable 6-year, $118 million deal to Rashard Lewis, who wasn't worth a third of that? How about letting go of Hito when he was a key part of the team that made the finals in exchange for Vince Carter, and then bringing Hito back in a trade that included Vince Carter, Marcin Gortat, and Michael Petras for Hito, Jason Richardson, and Earl Clark? What about the Gilbert Arenas experiment? The most recent knucklehead move the Magic made was giving away Ryan Anderson to the Hornets in a sign-and-trade. He was one of the only bright spots for the Magic last season. He was named the NBA's most improved player in 2012 and led the NBA in three-pointers made, and he's a power forward. The deal he signed with Orlando was a 4-year, $36 million contract. Why not keep a young, improving 6'10" power forward who's capable of leading the NBA in three-pointers for $9 million a year? What's wrong with that? You're willing to commit to Rashard Lewis for 6 years and about $20 million a year, for God's sakes. And the whole idea of surrounding Dwight Howard with nothing but three-point shooters shows how clueless the Orlando front office is when it comes to putting together an NBA championship contender. Basing your entire offensive philosophy around the lowest percentage shot in basketball, let's just go out there and make it a crapshoot to win every game. That should have been Van Gundy's pregame speech every time. All right, guys, let's go out there and roll the dice and see if we come out on top. What do you say? Gamble on three. 1, 2, 3, gamble. Anyway, so that's one of the two reasons this craziness is going on. The Magic are one of the poorly run franchises in all of sports. Number two, Dwight Howard is among a new wave of sports superstars, recently highlighted by players such as LeBron James, Jeremy Lin, that are about as clumsy as Steve Urkel when it comes to starting a career elsewhere. You know, in that song Patience with Damian Marley and Nas, Damian asks, "Are we growing wiser? Are we just growing tall?" Dwight Howard is the epitome of that. But all the flip-flopping makes him look like a fish out of water, and that's ironic because Shaq called Orlando a dried-up pond before he left for sunny LA. I do believe that Dwight Howard will go to the Lakers, and I do believe he'll re-sign with them. The Lakers land awesome big men in free agency. That's just what they do. Just like Wilt Chamberlain in 1968 from the Sixers, just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1975 from the Bucks, and Shaquille O'Neal in 1996 from the Magic. And I also hold true to what I said in a previous episode that the Lakers need Dwight Howard to be true contenders for an NBA title. The pickup of Steve Nash alone will not lift the Lakers to an NBA title. However, picking up Howard is exactly what LA needs in the paint, assuming Howard recovers from his back injury. Now, a healthy Andrew Bynum is a great player, don't get me wrong. However, he's developing into a center that likes to dominate on the offensive side of the floor. I mentioned before that the fact that he's trying three-pointers on offense against his coach's wishes is one of many indications of that. LA needs Howard for what he brings on the defensive side of the floor. It needs his athleticism and his shot blocking. The Thunder and Heat found their success this year and will continue to find their success by taking it to the rim. The Lakers' priority is stopping penetration. They're going to need that much more than they need extra points on the scoreboard. If they do get Howard, it may be one of the biggest things the Lakers have ever done. I know that's crazy because we're talking about one of the most successful franchises in all of sports, but just think about it. What if the Lakers get Howard and win at least 2 titles? And let's assume Kobe is still there. Kobe would retire with 7 titles, one more than Jordan, although you'll never hear me argue that Kobe is the better player. But more importantly, the Lakers will have 18 NBA titles and surpass the Celtics for the most NBA championships in the league. So basically, picking up Dwight Howard is the Lakers' key to incredible individual and team milestones. But the bottom line is, when it comes to Dwight Howard, we haven't figured anything out yet, and maybe he's just the latest example of a generation that we'll never figure out. Thanks for tuning in to BottomLineSports.net. With me, Talal Masri. Make sure to visit the Facebook wall for Bottom Line Sports. You can subscribe to all my podcasts in iTunes. You can also find me on Twitter at TSunSports. But more important than all that, guys, please make sure to make your voice heard and leave a comment. You guys really are what make this show happen. That's it for today. I'm out.